Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members, and to the department as well as the Liquor Authority, the acting CEO and her team, Advocate Pillay and her team, as well as the governing board of the Western Cape Liquor Authority, all other officials of government, the Auditor General, PMG, the media, all other guests and members of the public. Thank you so much for your attendance here today. We are today dealing with the annual report for the Department of Community Safety, as well as the Western Cape Liquor Authority. From the onset, I would want to say thank you, members, and each and every official and person being here today. It is highly commendable during an extremely tough year. We are still managing to sit on the 10th of December, so your presence is highly appreciated. Thank you so much. I will firstly allow members to introduce themselves for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Kilian Postman.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Further questions?
Good afternoon, Chair Lorraine Botha.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Member Brinkes.
Thank
Good
you
afternoon,
so
Chair Makama.
Thank you so much, each and every member that are here. Like I said, we are here to today discuss, deliberate on the 2019-2020 annual reports for the Department of Community Safety, as well as the Western Cape Liquor Authority. I would want to at this time table an apology from the Minister. I have spoken to him 25 minutes ago, and as you are all aware, he had a bout of COVID, and subsequently his wife is also not feeling well at this time. I trust that you will, together with me, accept his apology for today's annual report. Members, we've also received an apology from the EFF. Just to indicate the rules of our engagement today, and I wouldn't want to rehash each and every one, but in terms of the ATC rules of engagement on the 17th of April, we will then take their directives for the sitting of this committee today. Members, the order of our meeting today will also be where we will get input from the HOD. We will then go straight into the annual report for the Western Cape Liquor Authority. Thereafter, we will discuss and deliberate. I will then afford closing remarks from the Liquor Authority and the Governing Board. Thereafter, we will then go to the annual report for the Department of Community Safety. I think in time management, it would be easier to deal with the Western Cape Liquor Authority first and foremost. But members, please allow me to again, as per the news that we received from the Minister in the House a week ago, let me welcome the newly appointed HOD, Advocate Pillay, and her team. Thank you for your attendance here today. HOD, I will allow you to make any opening remarks at this stage.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Good afternoon to you and to the members. Thank you for this opportunity. And yes, we do wish Minister Fritz and Mrs. Fritz well during this time. I will just make a few opening remarks on behalf of the department and behalf of the management team and the Minister. The Department of Community Safety has embarked on a repurposing and realignment exercise to reposition ourselves as a service delivery orientated department. It is a very exciting process that we have embarked on. We have had consultative workshops with the personnel in our department, and we're looking forward to taking this into the new year as well. We are encouraging all our staff members to come forward and to have their voice heard so that we can be more responsive as a department to the needs of our vulnerable communities in the Western Cape. We will continue to deliver on our very important legislative oversight mandate, but we want to be able to do much more. As the members are aware, the Department of Community Safety is the co-lead in the safety focus area. The three focus areas being jobs, well-being, and safety. We are the co-lead with the Department of Health. We take that role very seriously, and we look forward to working together with yourselves to make the Western Cape a safer province. Chairperson, just to end, it has been a difficult year, and it continues to be a difficult year for all residents of the Western Cape, and just to say thank you to our very loyal and committed staff and management during these trying times for going beyond the call of duty for us as a department to be responsive to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we just want to assure the committee that we will continue to deliver our best in this regard. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, HOD. We, members, in terms of the way forward, I will allow brief introductions from the Deputy Chairperson. I see your video is already on, Mr. Kingwell. I will allow opening remarks from you. We will be dealing first and foremost with the Western Cape Liquor Authority. But also, if the acting CEO has joined us, can I get an indication from Mr. Matthews?
Chairperson Advocate does show that she's in the meeting. And if we could just ask the gentleman to please stop sharing his camera view, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kingwell. In terms of bandwidth and in connectivity, I will request that you switch off your video camera at this time, but you are more than welcome if you make any input to switch it on again, just to ensure that the line remains stable throughout the meeting. The acting CEO of the Liquor Authority, I will now allow you to make opening remarks, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon, colleagues. In presenting the WCLA's annual report for the 2019-2020 financial year, I'd like to just note that the authority has faced various challenges, but has also seen developments in many areas of the organization. There's been further enhancements in terms of our systems, which has enabled us to streamline our operations and conduct our work in an automated and a simplified manner. Since the previous year, the authority has also seen a significant decline in the number of incomplete applications received due to ongoing efforts to assist applicants in the lodgement of applications. However, steep advertising costs for liquor applications is still a challenge for us. We've expanded our communication footprint in an attempt to reach a larger number of stakeholders by including social media platforms as part of our communication mediums and also revamping our website. The authority also received an unqualified audit opinion with no findings, which is an audit outcome we are particularly proud of. COVID-19 has been declared a global pandemic towards the last quarter of the financial year, has posed certain challenges, but also enabled the authority to rise through those challenges and find new opportunities to adapt our service delivery model to those circumstances. It has urged us to respond to the challenges created by the situation with innovative means within which to ensure that we continue to deliver our services throughout all stages of the lockdown to the residents of the Western Cape. And more pertinently, it has required us to intensify our enforcement efforts towards compliance with both the Western Cape Act, Liquor Act, as well as the National Disaster Management Act and regulations. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that in the year under review, the authority has started taking strategic leadership in relation to the alcohol-related harms reduction as outlined in the Alcohol Harms Reduction White Paper. And for this purpose, we need to be strategically capacitated to execute our mandate. I'd just like to extend a special word of thanks also to our custodial department as well as to our Minister and HOD for their ongoing support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. To the Deputy Chairperson for the Governing Board, is there any comments from you at this time? Your screen appears to be frozen my side. Are you able to hear me, Mr. Kingwell?
Chair, yes, thank you. I can hear you, and it's not my video. It is actually just a reminder that we're still alive and well and that we exist. But we absolutely appreciate the chair's request to turn videos off. My video is off. That's merely an image. So just to say that we, on behalf of the board, endorse the support for the minister and his family, and we also congratulate the HOD on her appointment. But Chair, as we speak to present our annual report this year, it's very important to note that as an entity, it becomes extremely difficult to meet the obligations set within the PFMA without the support of their parent department. And in particular this year, the Department of Community Safety have provided both resources and leadership to the Liquor Board as we've dealt with vacancies at our CEO level and our CFO level. And we would not have been able to present this report without that support. And I think it's very important to note to the Standing Committee. So with that opening, Chair, I say we look forward to the session. Management will be presenting most of the responses and have really been very capable, and we look forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At a later stage, between yourself as well as the acting CEO, if any direct question is posed and one of the board members wishes to provide input, I will allow for that to happen at a later stage, but also for then an introductory remark to be made from the person providing the input. Members, we will proceed. I will now table the Western Cape Liquor Authority Annual Report for 2019-2020. I will table the entire Part A, which is from pages 6 to page 16. I trust that we have perused the document. We've made notes. It was distributed via our procedural officer. It was also distributed via the parliamentary clerk's office, and I trust that we are good to go this afternoon. It is now 2:15. Depending on the time limits that we do spend on each and every part, and depending on where we are, I will then make an assessment on when we are taking a potential leg stretch or short break. We are scheduled to sit from 2 until 7. But thank you so much again to each and everyone that is here. Your presence is highly appreciated. I will now take a round of questions. Any member to raise their hand by using the function via MS Teams. I see one hand at this time. Member Kama, I note you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon once again to you and the members and the department. Let me also, Chair, welcome the appointment of the HOD. I think someone who has been a frequenter in these meetings. Chair, my first question is on page 8 of the report. I think it's the second last. It's the second last paragraph. The second sentence that deals with them. I think it reads further challenges where the capacitation of the liquor license tribunal and key vacancies in the management which were filled, with the exception of the CEO, which remains vacant. I think even the deputy chair of the governing board had just touched on that and the challenges that has brought, which leaves me with the question there, Chair, as to why is the position of the CEO still vacant, and for how long has it been vacant, and what progress has been made in filling the vacancy. The second question that I have, Chair, is on page 9, on the third bullet point, where it says all liquor license applications were processed without undue delays and within the prescribed timeframes in a manner that is accessible to all. Now, what I want to understand there, Chair, is what is the number of applications that were received during the year under review, and how many were rejected and reasons thereof. Perhaps also talk on what work has been done to help the unlicensed traders to get licensed. The other question that I have, Chair, is on page 9, on the last bullet point, where it talks about introducing a liquor license fee structure that is fair and market related. Now, what I want to get there, Chair, is whether the board is not concerned by the high number of liquor outlets owned by the big retail stores in the poor communities, and what work is being done to assist small liquor traders who have to compete with these big outlets. The other question that I have, Chair, is on page 10, in the first paragraph, second sentence, where it says we had continued to improve on the initiatives of the previous financial year, such as the processes implemented to act against non-compliant license holders. Now, what I want to understand, Chair, is what are the processes followed to deal with non-compliant license holders, and how many non-compliant license holders were dealt with during the year under review? Can the committee, perhaps if the detail of some of these questions that I'm not asking is not there now, can the committee be furnished with a detailed report in this regard? The other question, Chair, on page 10 is on the fourth paragraph, the last sentence, where it deals with the fines to the value of just above 1.5 million rand were issued to license holders who acted contrary to the provisions of the Act. Now, what I want to understand in this, Chair, is what are the details and addresses of these license holders that were fined, and what are the acts, or commonly what contraventions are these related to? Where are they mostly located? And can we perhaps even on this later, if it can be provided today, be provided with the list of these outlets that were fined, the related fines and the offenses that were committed, and where they are located, Chair. The last question, that is the last question, Chair, for me on this part 8. Thank you.
Member Kama, thank you so much for getting the ball rolling. I see no other hands at this time. If I can just add one additional, I am partly covered by the questions posed by Member Kama. I see Member Bosman. I will first note you, sir.
Chair, you sure you don't want to go ahead of me?
Okay, let me go ahead. Just one question. We've heard for the last year, and as well if I recollect from last year, in terms of the strategic initiatives, which is obviously dependent on the sufficient funding and the Liquor Authority having embarked on a road to become self-sustainable. Are we able to get an update from if it's the department or the Liquor Authority to give some info or input into that? Where are we currently in regard to the Liquor Authority being self-sustainable? Over to you, Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. That was going to be part of my question as well. It's one of the risks that the Department of Community Safety identifies in their annual report under the governance section, part C. They said the inability of the Western Cape Liquor Authority to be self-sufficient is a governance risk that they've, a strategic risk, sorry, that they've identified. So I just wanted to find out, in the forward by the acting CEO, it says that the path to self-sufficiency is continuing with much vigor. So I just wanted to ask if we can get some more information on what those steps are and sort of what pitch and level that vigor is at. And then, Chairperson, the sort of forward speaks a lot about the Liquor Authority's work in alcohol harms reduction, but I just wanted to know whether the CEO or the acting CEO or the acting board chair could perhaps also expand on the role of the Liquor Authority more broadly in regulating liquors in the province, to the point where it also assists with economic growth as well. Because if we're going to work towards a path of self-sustainability, who's going to ultimately pay for that? It's ultimately going to be the businesses that apply for these licenses, etc. Those are my two inputs, Chair, for now.
Thank you so much. At this stage, I will hand over directly to the department and to the Liquor Authority. Firstly, I will note the acting CEO, Advocate Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for those questions as well. In terms of the questions, as raised by Member Kama on page 9, in relation to the liquor license applications and the assistance to unlicensed liquor traders, the Liquor Authority in the year under review has embarked on a test kitchen, which was a pilot project in terms of assisting unlicensed liquor traders with providing them with information on liquor license applications and how to apply for liquor license applications. So that was a test kitchen and a pilot project that we had rolled out in the alcohol harms reduction game changer areas. In terms of the specific numbers of applications received and refused, I don't have that information currently with me right now, but that is something that we can, if the chairperson consents to that, provide in a written report following the session. In terms of the next question, I think I have it as in terms of the big liquor traders in communities and what is done to help the smaller traders. That links onto the previous question. As part of the initiatives, the Western Cape Liquor Authority has a contact center which provides assistance to members of the public and also potential applicants with information on how to apply for liquor licenses. So that is in relation to application forms, documentation, etc. And we also take them through the process if that is required by the applicant. So that is a service that we provide to the entire Western Cape. And we also do receive from time to time, not so much now during the time of COVID-19, but walk-in clients who also request assistance with liquor license applications. And we gladly also provide them with all the necessary documentation. And we also take them through the processes as to how to apply. So that is how the Liquor Authority is assisting potential applicants with license application processes and also various documentation. At certain points in the application processes, we also provide updates to the applicants, and we try and assist them as far as possible with updates on the progress or the status of those applications. In terms of the processes to deal with non-compliant license holders, and Jan will also ask that the Senior Manager for Enforcement also can come in at this stage, Mr. Matal van Loo. But the process to deal with non-compliant license holders is basically outlined also in the Liquor Act. The liquor inspectors would normally respond to certain allegations or complaints that is brought against the non-compliant license holders, and certain sanctions has been provided for in terms of Section 20 of the Western Cape Liquor Act, where the LLT is able to impose various sanctions against those non-compliant license holders. One of them being revocation, suspension, imposing of alternative conditions on the license, and also steep fines, which is what we've also referred to in our annual report, or a combination of them. The sanctions has also served as a deterrent against non-compliance, because we've seen a lot of these cases where if one license holder is being sanctioned and has a steep fine, that would then serve as a message, and it sends out a strong message to other non-compliant license holders. And we see also that, like I said, serves as a strong deterrent. In terms of the numbers for the non-compliance, I'm going to ask that Advocate Matal van Loo maybe just provide us an indication if he's got those numbers available, with your permission, Chair.
That's a-okay, Advocate. Thank you.
Chair, yes. My name is Martel van Lille. I'm the Head of Compliance and Enforcement. Just in terms of the numbers quickly, we had 344 non-compliance matters referred to our prosecutor. I think this is kind of unique in the Western Cape as we have an office which specifically deals with non-compliance matters and do basically the assessing of such cases that are being presented by either the police or the inspectors before it goes to the LLT for consideration. Out of the 344 cases, 210 of those were sent to the LLT for consideration. What I also need to mention is that we also had the LMAT system enhanced to make it easier for the prosecutor and myself to keep track of non-compliance cases. So it's easier to monitor the progress and to see what the outcomes are. In terms of the specific details of the details of licensees, we will have to probably provide you with further details at a later stage. We had certain projects running prior to this, to the mentioned financial year. We've seen that the Game Changer had some results in terms of the impact that it had in terms of compliance levels, and we wanted to expand that to other parts of the province as well. So the most common problem we have still is the fact that in terms of the struggle with zoning requirements, we still find a lot of illegal outlets in certain, say, informal areas. And the reason, in order to address that, we basically have to focus on the upstream prosecutions. So there's a lot of outlets in the informal areas which are still distributing liquor to the illegal outlets. And therefore, we monitor them on a regular basis. The most common contraventions, I would say, is the ones that speaks to the illegal distribution in the form of the selling of liquor of more than 150 liters at any given time. We're looking at after-hour trading. We're looking at off-sales from our on-consumption premises. And you're also looking at the failure to keep proper record of liquor sold to the public from an on-consumption outlet. The most common contraventions in relation to on-consumption outlets are basically a lack of control, where people don't necessarily have the necessary security in place, and where children are being allowed to enter certain restricted areas and so on. I hope I've addressed all the questions there, Chair.
Thank you so much. To Advocate Peterson, is there any further questions that you would want to give input to?
Thank you, Chair. I think the only other question, or there were still two further questions in relation to the fines of 1.5 million and the details of license holders as well as the contraventions related to the non-compliance. I think Member Kama alluded to the fact that this information may not be available at this point in time, which is correct. I would like to request that this information also then be provided to the members in a written report, if that is in order, Chair.
Thank you so much. Our procedural officer, Mr. Matthews, will be capturing those in the meantime as well. Advocate Pillay, would you want to come in at any time?
Thank you, Chairperson. I note that Dr. Platsky's hand is up as well. Can I just check with our CFO and our Chief Director Management Support if they would like to make any input, if that is fine with you, Chairperson?
That's totally okay. I will then directly afterwards note Dr. Platsky.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Mohammed Friesler here, CFO Community Safety. Nothing from my side. Thank you, HOD.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Lindy Govender from Community Safety, Chief Director Management Support. I also don't have any specific input at this stage. Thank you.
Duly noted. Let me first see Dr. Platsky and then Mr. Kingwell.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon to the members and congratulations to Ms. Pillay on her appointment. I was hoping that our CFO was going to have a chance to speak to the issue about self-sustainability and the challenges that we have around that. So I would like to reserve a moment for him to have a response there. Chair, both Member Karma and Member Brinkhuis have spoken about alcohol, excuse me, alcohol and the economy. And I know that not everybody has read the white paper on alcohol harms reduction. That is the gazetted paper that was published after the Western Cape Cabinet adopted it in September 2017. But I think there is a somewhat of a misunderstanding about the role of liquor in the economy. And while many people are, in fact, making a living out of liquor, it is very important to understand that the liquor industry costs the South African economy more than it contributes. And that is because so much has to be spent on public health, on ambulances, on traffic police who, you know, have to police drunk drivers, and on, well, I think probably the health, public violence, crime. There's a lot of evidence to show that, and particularly around lockdown, we saw how much more calm and safe the society was. So I think it's a misnomer to say that there's a balance between the benefits of liquor in the economy and the costs. The costs have been computed as far greater than the contributions. That doesn't mean that there are individuals who are making a living and creating jobs. But I think we must bear this bigger picture in mind, that this is not a win-win situation. The second thing is particularly relating to Member Karma's point about the many liquor, shall I say, maybe even the unlicensed traders who are making a living in townships and around about townships, as opposed to the very big producers and suppliers of alcohol. We need to understand, as I think Mr. Van Lille has mentioned earlier, that the off license, the off consumption licensed outlets, the very big ones, I won't mention brand names, but I think we all know a lot of who they are and where they are. And they, knowingly or unknowingly, and let me not say that I think it's an innocent pastime, I think it's very important to note that they are supplying the unlicensed outlets. So these small outlets that are very vulnerable, maybe an old lady selling a few crates of beer over a weekend, are not really the people that we feel need to be controlled and regulated in a better way. It's really the point of sale, the point of a legal sale, or the point of a legal outlet that is selling to an illegal person or outlet. That is the nub of the problem, and that is very, very difficult to control, and that is where we are sending, and you will see with the fines and so on that we are making some headway there. Under lockdown, it has been even more difficult, particularly when unlicensed outlets were allowed to sell for off-consumption purposes. This really has been a difficult time for us. But I think it's just important to understand that it's not just about big and small, although it is very much about license, the relationship between licensed and unlicensed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And now, is the CFO ready?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take two questions, the one relating to the fairness or the fair and market-related fee structure, and the second one with regards to the self-sustainability gap. I'll start with the one with the self-sustainability gap. We've had to define what self-sustainability means, and the definition we've given to it is that the liquor authority must collect and pay over more to the provincial revenue fund than it receives in allocations from the fiscus. And if you look at the current year under review, we've received 42 million from the fiscus, and we've paid over to our custodial department 41 million. So you're looking at a self-sustainability gap of about $1 million. And if you look at where we come from, that's where we feel like we've done a lot of work in terms of getting there. There's been two things that have been instrumental to that. The first one is to say the fee increases that over the years we've been permitted we've been granted have really done a lot to bridge that gap. And the second issue is that we have started projects to eliminate the number of unintended lapsing of licenses. So the number of people that intend on keeping their licenses, but through administrative issues, they end up not renewing their licenses on time, and then they lapse. So when we curtail the number of unintended lapsing and also are permitted to increase our fees, we then start bridging that gap. But in the past, the increase that we've been given has been limited to and linked to CPI, which has led to us not achieving sustainability to date. I'll leave that one there. The second issue is around the fee structure. We have developed a roadmap to develop a differentiated pricing model that will see us charging a different fee for different types of licenses or differentiating the various licenses. We're looking at a model that is perhaps maybe linked to volumes traded or the type of license. And there's various things we want to achieve in that. It's not merely a pricing mechanism, but it's also a mechanism that allows us to target those that cause the most harm so that they contribute the most to the work that we do to manage or to eliminate those harms. And that roadmap is currently being consulted with the relevant stakeholders, but it can only be implemented once the urgent amendments to the Act have been passed. I'm going to leave it there, Chair.
Thank you so much. Members, is there any follow-up question or point of clarity that you would want to raise at this time? As the CFO was talking now, I'm just aware that so we have the 6 liquor license categories. Does that mean that once the Act is then amended, there will be a different category as well? Just for clarity purposes, sir, that's one follow-up from me. But members, is there any follow-up? I see Member Bosman and then Member Kama. Let me, before I take the members, I'm so sorry, I see the Deputy Chairperson, your hand is up. Is that still relevant, sir?
Yes, please, Chair. I think the one question that wasn't responded to was the very first question, and that was the status with the appointment of the CEO position. And I think as current chairman of the board, I'm probably best positioned to respond to that. That vacancy has been in existence for almost 2 years now, and we have advertised extensively once, and we were unsuccessful in being able to raise a candidate that was appropriate for the post at the grading at the time. And subsequent to that, we then had to proceed with applications to the department, through the department, to get a increase in the grading of that position. That required an organizational design structure for which there were significant delays as other priorities were presented. And eventually we are in a position, Chair, to say that we are currently advertised. Well, we've completed our advertising. We are shortlisting, in fact, tomorrow, and that we hope to be interviewing in the first and second week of January to fulfill that vacancy. The main reason for the delay has been the need to have an organization design that has been outstanding with the entity since it was created, and we now have assurance that that process will continue, but with the assistance of the Ministers of Finance and Department of Community Safety, they have given us permission to proceed with the increase in the grading of the CEO position so that we are able to attract an appropriate candidate to this very important position. Thank you, Chair, and I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kingwell. Member Kama, I noted your reply within the chat function, but I'll first note Member Bosman, but then I'll note Member Kama thereafter. Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm just reflecting on the contribution made by Dr. Platsky with regards to the cost of the burden of alcohol abuse to the economy, and I agree. But I also just want to think we should note that it's not just the responsibility of the Western Cape Liquor Authority. So my question would then be, what are the types of partnerships that are being formed broadly outside of government to enable that type of work to happen? Because I note in the report that there are no partnerships with the private sector. If I'm looking at just that page 56. So what are some of the partnerships that are being formed, and is there a plan to collaborate a little bit more wider than just government departments? Thanks, Chair.
Member Kama, I note you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to follow up, Chair, on the inputs about the self-sustainability of the liquor authority, and I'm wondering, Chair, because every time when there's a reference made to that, it's directly linked to, or it's responded to by the fee increases. Now I want to check if is the sustainability of the authority only reliant on fee increases, and what is the impact of this on the license holders? So what is the impact of the increases on the license holders? Have we seen any link of it to those that then do not renew their licenses, whether on time or any other thing? What has been the reaction of the license holders to this? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. From the members, is there any other hand from the members? I will first hand over to Advocate Peterson. I have noted Dr. Platsky's hand as up again, but I will hand over to the CEO, and she's more than able to either answer or delegate accordingly. Acting CEO, I see you.
Thank you, Chair. If possible, I would like to request that Dr. Platsky answers the follow-up question in relation to the alcohol harms reduction partnerships, and in relation to the question on the follow-up question on the self-sustainability, the CFO, please. Thank you, Chair.
Duly noted. Dr. Platsky.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the acting CEO. As chair of the stakeholder, the community engagement and stakeholder subcommittee of the board, we have, I can say, sure that the member Bosman, that we have developed some very good partnerships. Now, I just want to start, if I may, to list a few, because actually, you know, obviously the Liquor Authority is the regulator, and part of our mandate is to contribute to the harms reduction, but it is a real whole of society issue. And the whole of society includes the whole of government. So we work very closely with the LDACs, that's the Local Drug Action Committee, That is the one that is under or led by the Department of Social Development. And then there is an LDAC meant to be in each one of our, I think, 30 municipalities we have in the Western Cape. It's also part of a national structure. We work very closely with the CPFs where they exist, and we've had in the past a good relationship with them, and we feed information and we request information. So the whole thing about partnership is very important to empower communities themselves to have a say, not only over the licensing, but where there is an objection. Maybe there's an outlet that has been licensed and that is not abiding by the conditions that were placed on it. So to empower communities around not only objections to applications, but complaints about perhaps serving under 18-year-olds going well into the night, that kind of thing. So CPFs and neighborhood watches are very much part of our partnership strategy. Then we have partnerships with academic institutions, those that are very closely involved, such as the Public Health School at UCT. And we also have worked with the University of the Western Cape. One of our board members is part of the Dalla Omar Institute at UWC, and they've done some extremely interesting work on policing and issues that would be close to the heart of your committee, Chair. So I think those are some of the more important ones. Then we work with NGOs that are not funded by the liquor industry. There is a conflict of interest, and we have taken a policy decision not to work with those who are funded by the industry because there is a vested interest there. That is not to say that the industry shouldn't get on and do whatever it feels it needs to do to reduce harms, but we don't engage with conflicts of interest. So we work with, for example, the DG Murray Trust, which has a similar approach. And next year, hopefully, there will be more and further engagement. But we started with the spheres of government being provincial and local with the existing institutions. Another one, just the last one I should mention is Safely Home. We have worked closely with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To Advocate Peterson, you mentioned another name that could come in to answer. I didn't catch the last one.
Thank you, Chair. It was Sandiso, the CFO, related to the follow-up question on the self-sustainability, Chairperson.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Acting CEO and Chairperson. I'll start with the question around the different categories of licenses. You're correct, Chair, that we've got 6 categories of licenses. So if you want to differentiate, you want to define your licensees differently to say, currently now, off-consumption license is the same. Whether you're a big player or a small player, the same with the on-consumption. Whether you're big or small, you are the same. Whether you're a ship-in or a hotel, you are the same. So what we're saying is that the pricing model needs to do one or two things. Either looks at the volumes you trade and differentiate based on different categories of volumes traded to say, if you're trading smaller volumes, the harms you're putting, or the volumes of alcohol you're putting out is lower. That's the harms linked to it is likely to be lower. That's your contribution towards addressing alcohol-related harms should be proportionate to the harms you create. So you would need to say small, large, or medium. That's the first type, or you could differentiate by license type to saying, based on a hotel versus a different type, I don't want to impugn on any type, the harms associated with the type of license holders or establishments are different. So you'd want to develop further categories, either in the Act or by way of regulations. There's technical approaches to that. I'll leave that to legal who are assisting us in the process. I'll leave that one there, Chair. The second one is around our approach to self-sustainability, that it's linked to fee increases. The reality we face is that the real measure we would want to use to address self-sustainability is a differential pricing model. But because that requires legislative changes, it was not a measure that was available in the immediate, in that we couldn't say next year we're going to do it, because you first need to make the legislative changes, and we understood that it's almost an average of a 2-year process. So we said we couldn't kick down the can of sustainability further down in 2 years. We needed to take some measures now, which why a fee increase is a short-term measure, with the differential pricing model being a long-term measure. Then you look at what's the impact on license holders. An annual license fee now for an on or off consumption is 4,585, which is equivalent to 382 Rand a month. And the fee increases that we've been doing in the past 2 years have been linked to CPI. That has managed to curtail the impact that has on license holders, to saying if you have to generate a sales of 382 rands a month to fund your license holder, if you're a viable business, then you are able to accommodate that within your cost structure. However, if the business model you have is not a viable model outside the license fee, then you see people saying that, no, it's, you know what, I've done an analysis, I'm deciding to let go of the license, not because the license is not affordable, but the business model I have, maybe I'm a B&B and I'm not based on selling alcohol. The alcohol sales for me are such of low nature that it doesn't make sense for me to retain the license. So I'm willing to let go the license and focus on my core business. I hope that answers those 2 questions, Chair. Thanks.
Members, in terms of where we are now, and to the CEO, Dr. Platsky, the CFO, thank you for your responses so far. Members, where we are now, I will ask for one further point of clarity or any question on the entire Part A, and will afford members between 60 and 90 seconds for their input. I see one hand. Any other member before we move on to Part B? I see one hand. Over to you, Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I just maybe want to ask that we get as further information, more detail on the policy decision that was taken around the types of partnerships that the Liquor Authority enters into, because I do note in terms of its mission, one of the key, I think it's the second one that's there, states that it is to form partnerships. And I do think we need to find different ways to engage some of the producers of alcohol as well, because they should carry a bigger burden in terms of assisting with the implementation of the alcohol harms reduction. And we need to look at ways that they can better play their part. I do want to also just note that this is not in Part A, it's further down the report when it speaks about the BBE scorecard, that it does say that the Liquor Authority has no partnership with private companies. So that's why I asked that question. But mine is just to note that more information on that policy would definitely be helpful as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Bosman. Our procedural officer would have captured that request as well. Members, we have now concluded Part A. We will promptly move to Part B, and considering where we are, I will table the entire Part B, pages 18 to 44, which has 6 components together with a number of other inputs as per the annual report. I will take a round of questions. Members are fully aware that questions can further be asked in written format or via a resolution from this committee for additional information. I see Member Kama. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me also acknowledge the responses thus far. Chair, my question is on page 25, component 1 of liquor licensing administration. And I want to, I see there that the department could not meet its planned target. It is provided, Chair, is that it is due to the national state of disaster declaration in 17 March this year and the subsequent lockdown. I just want to check, Chair, if these are the only reasons why the department could not meet this target, as the two incidents of the disaster only happened, I think, after a mid of the last month of the financial year. That's number one, Chair. But the second question I have is on page 35 on the component that deals with compliance and enforcement, where it talks about the number of enforcement interventions conducted. I want to get an understanding of what are the details of these interventions and how many might have resulted on fines or revoking of licenses, and in which areas did these interventions take place, Chair? And in that, I want to get an understanding, because when I ask which areas, I also want to get an understanding which the authority does interventions in the areas like the Sea Point, the Thames Bay, the Green Point, Clifton, and all other affluent areas which we have seen. And I know the reporting is for the 2019-2020 financial year, but I'm just saying which we had seen even under a lockdown, where different outlets in the Sea Point were contravening even the regulations of the lockdown. The other question I have, Chair, is on page 32, where it talks the number of persons reached through awareness interventions. I just want to check there, why was that target not achieved? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. I will now give over directly to the Liquor Authority again.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the questions from Member Kama. With regards to the first question related to the underperformance for applications processed resultant out of the national state of disaster, the number of applications processed as reported there includes all applications. However, the narrative there refers specifically to event and temporary license applications, and the deviation of 109 applications specifically relates only to those types of applications. So those applications are the ones that we were not able to process due to the national state of disaster having been declared as of the 15th of March. We normally see a high number of these applications being received on a week-by-week basis, and specifically during that time period as well, which is normally a peak season. Hence, our numbers are fairly higher during that time period, and that's the reason for the deviation of 109 for specifically the underperformance related to only event and temporary license applications. In terms of processing of all other applications, there was specifically no deviations in that regard. In relation to the question on page 35, and that relates to the number of enforcement interventions, I will attempt to answer these questions, but I'll also ask that the head of the enforcement unit also provide further detail in this regard. However, the interventions referred to specifically on page 35 includes both operations as well as inspections, and that is the number that is reported on there. I'll, with your permission, Chairperson, ask that Advocate Van Lille provide us with more detail pertaining to those specific types of interventions and also the areas. If it's not possible for us to provide that information now, that we also request that this also be provided in a writing via the procedural officer, please, Chairperson.
Thank you so much.
Chair, if you'll allow me, I will do my best to answer this one. I think it's important to mention that the areas, the Western Cape has been split into different areas according to municipalities. So each inspector has more or less an average of, I could say, an average of about 800 licenses that they are responsible for. So interventions are being planned according to these areas. So they are working closely with the police and law enforcement in the relevant areas to identify problematic outlets. And the focus are mostly on such outlets in order to do follow-up inspections in cases where we received complaints. In terms of the city, for example, we only have one inspector dealing with the city on its own based on the number of licenses in the city itself. So we don't necessarily focus every week on the same area. Inspectors plan their operations according to the relevant dedicated areas, and they are very much dependent on the information that they get, either from the public in the form of complaints, or from the police or law enforcement based on the issues or crime that is committed in those areas. If that answers the question, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, Member Kama, are you covered your side? CEO, I note you.
Apologies, Chairperson. I think there was one more question that was still outstanding in relation to page 32, and that was the deviation for persons reached through awareness interventions. There also, the comment on the deviation was due to the National State of Disaster Plan. School and community sessions were cancelled. Those community and school interventions were planned throughout the quarter, and that was from January up until the end of March. The interventions didn't only stop as of the 15th of March when the state of disaster was declared, but also steps needed to be taken to start cutting back on those face-to-face interventions as of the start of that calendar year already. So that is the reason why that number was not reached. And the highest numbers that we normally reach are through the schools, through the interventions with the learners, and hence the reason for the deviation there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Member Kama, is your hand up?
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just going to say, if I had the advocate correctly, she was saying that the 109 applications, they only had to do with the events and that. If we can get a list of those, Chair, and also a list of interventions that have happened in the areas that I had mentioned, your Sea Point, your Camps Bay, your Clifton, that have resulted in, if there are any also that have resulted in fines or revoking of license under the period under review. One question that I have, Chair, which is a follow-up, if I may, to the question I'd asked as to why is the declaration of the lockdown used as an excuse for these deviations. I therefore want to ask, Chair, linked to that, is there any leeway that was given? Because I understand that the different dates, whether it's for application, whether it's for making or for lack of a better word, an appeal to the CEO if one has missed to renew, pay the license. I want to check if there was any way that was given, understanding that the part that relates to the appeals that must be made with the minister is on the end of March, and March could have been part that period and also part of this period that we are deliberating on now. Thanks, Chair. I think that would.
Thank you so much, Member Kama. Over to the Liquor Authority.
Thank you, Chairperson. With regards to the question relating to the extensions or any requests for extensions, specifically stated in the Western Cape Liquor Act is that the submission deadline for condonation applications is the 31st of March of any particular year, and that all requests for condonnations be submitted to the CEO before that date. Since the Western Cape Liquor Authority was remotely operational, we were still available telephonically as well as via email. Our contact center also sent out various communications to license holders, reminding them to renew timeously. So all applications for condonation was received before that 31 March deadline, and we were able to sufficiently and successfully also process those applications within those timeframes. Thank you, Chair.
Members, we are now pages 18 to 44. We've dealt with part A. We've questioned on part B. If there's any burning question with specific reference to a page number, I will afford a member between 60 and 90 seconds. In the absence of no additional hands, we will now go on to the next part. And I do want to say that part C will be dealt with in Scopa, where it will be tabled on a page-by-page basis, as well as part E to be strictly dealt with Scopa. So I will, if there is a pertinent question that you want to ask at this stage between pages 79 and 19, I will allow for one round on that, knowing that Scopa will be dealing with that extensively as well. And then we'll go directly onto part D for human resource management. Members, I trust you find that in order. I'll take a hand around now. So part D has been tabled. The entire human resource part has been tabled. But if there's anything pertinent with regard to part C, I will allow you to raise that now, but also knowing that it will be dealt with in Scopa extensively. I see no hands at this time. Wasim, is my screen freezing?
No, Chairperson, there are no hands raised at this moment.
No, thank you so much. Members, we will be in the year 2020 engaged further with the Western Cape Liquor Authority. A couple of weeks ago, we underwent an interview process to fill the 2 vacancies within the board at the moment. We understand that next year there is another round of interviews taking place, and after the year 2020 and COVID, we trust that next year we would be able to engage face-to-face, and we look forward to further engagement with the Liquor Authority and the governing board. May I request at this time, if there is any member of the public that would like to ask any question pertaining to the entire annual report. To confirm, via our procedural officer, we have received no request. But we've not had. Thank you so much to Advocate Peterson, as well as the chairman for the board. Is there any closing remarks from your side?
Chair, if I may, just to thank the Standing Committee for this opportunity, more particularly to thank the management team of the Liquor Authority for the enormous effort that they've put in over this year, and the fact that we've had limited questions relevant process means that they've done the job well, and I'd like to congratulate them on that, but that also to thank the members for the very relevant questions that they have asked, and the fact that we could answer them is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members.
Thank you so much. Advocate Peterson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to echo what Mr. Kingo has expressed in terms of his thanks to the committee members for the opportunity for us to be able to table and present our annual report. Thank you very much for the questions as well, and we will try our utmost best to address them in writing via the procedural officer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much to the Liquor Authority as well as the Governing Board for input from Dr. Platsky, from the CFO, from other members of the board, as well as our acting CEO for the Liquor Authority. Thank you so much for you being here today. You are now excused and you may vacate or leave the meeting, but you are also more than welcome to remain here for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair, and to the committee.
Thank you so much, members. It is now 15:11. We will take a short comfort break for 5 minutes. At 15:16, we will resume. I trust that you all find that in order. If you need to get a coffee, or let me not say a drink, otherwise it's misinterpreted, a cool drink or anything, in the next 5 minutes, we will resume. The meeting is now suspended. I know I've indicated that we are on a short break. Let me just double check. Are we all aware that we will be, can I extend that until 15:20? I know 2 members have contacted me regarding connectivity. They are coming back now, but can we commence 15:20?
That's fine, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Christians and Member Bosman and Member Kama and everyone online, Member Botha. 15:20, we will commence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Auditor General, any member of the public that is still online, thank you so much for your attendance and also again for adhering to the short break. If I can just quickly ascertain if members are online.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm here.
Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. I see a hand. Oh, it went up and down. Advocate Pillay, you are online.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson.
Members, thank you so much. We will now go straight over to the annual report for the Department of Community Safety. Like I indicated earlier on, we have received an apology from Minister Fritz, and we all surely wish him and his wife well in their recovery. As per the annual report, which was circulated via email correspondence, Part A, B, C, D, and E. Again, we will deal with Part A, we will deal with Part B, and we will deal with Part D. However, if there's any serious matter that you would want to raise, members, for Part C, I will allow it, but we will then deal, but in terms of the scope process, Part C and E will be dealt with in Scopa. We've already heard from the HOD earlier on, so I will go straight into it and allow for a round of questions on Part A, which is pages 3 to 16. Pages 3 to 16 is now accordingly tabled. I note member Christians.
Thank you, Chairperson.
And then member Kama in that order. Thank you so much, member Christians.
Thank you, Chairperson. I know the minister's not here, but I just need to make, maybe the HOD can answer that. On page 6, it says between 2016 and 2020, 1 to the third paragraph, between 2016 and 2018, accreditation of neighborhood watches is 484. Now, the neighborhood watches must be accredited every year. Is that so? And if so, how many of those 484 was not accredited after? So if I'm talking about 2016, you have a neighborhood watches accredited 2017. So there must be a lapse. That 484, is that a true reflection of neighborhood watches still accredited? If the HOD can just answer that. And then I just want to ask, maybe I was not in one meeting or something, but I see the minister did not say anything about the former HOD leaving. I see the new Advocate Pillay mentions here appreciation to the former HOD. Did this contract end, or what is the? I see the minister did not mention anything about Mr. Gideon Morris. If the HOD can just say that is on page 9 where she said that. But also just the last question, Chair. Page 847 talks about overseeing the funding and training of the deployment of the LEAD project. So did you oversee that project, and how far is the department with amending the Western Cape Community Safety Bill? How far are they amending in order to have proper oversight over the projects, the LEAD projects? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Christians. Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will also have questions on page 5, and I note and accept that the MEC could not be available today, but I hope, because it's programs of the department, so maybe the HOD will be able to respond. My first question, Chair, on page 5, paragraph 3, where it speaks about the department that in 2019-20 financial year, it says we brought to life safety plan which aims to halve the murder rate over the next 10 years. Now I want to understand, Chair, because even in many debate speeches or responses provided by the MEC, he always makes an example of projects or interventions that the department is having in Hanover Park. And I want to get an understanding, Chair, of what is the number of officers that were deployed to Hanover Park and how many were deployed to other crime spots as identified in the top 30 or in the top 10 murder precincts in the Western Cape. The second question that I have, Chair, is on the same page 5, bullet 5, on gender-based violence and rural safety monitoring through the criminal justice system. I want to get an understanding there. Statistics have shown that Western Cape has highest number of gender-based violent hotspots in the country and the highest number of gender-based violence cases. Now, I want to check, moving from when the safety plan was introduced, if the department does have any plans to avail funding for gender-based violence prevention programs, and what work is being done in the department or was done under this period, which is on review for reporting. What work was done to address the gender-based violence sketch? Those are the questions that I have for now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Kama. Mr. Donsals, your hand is up, sir. Just want to double check if there's... Okay, it's lowered. Advocate, based on the input and the questions from Member Christians and Member Kama, I will now hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We are joined this afternoon by all our SMS members that are in office and currently not on leave. So I'm definitely going to ask some of the program heads to answer some of them. So I will attempt to answer most of them and then we'll take it from there, and also then indicate who would be answering from our side. So in terms of the 484 accredited neighborhood watches, I'm going to ask the Director, Fred Watkins, to answer that question. In terms of the contract of former HOD Morris, that Honourable Member Christians asked, yes, Mr. Morris's contract ended, his 5-year contract ended at the end of March 2020, and his contract was then further extended for the period until the end of June 2020, and thereafter terminated. So it was the official 5-year term ended at the end of March. And then I began acting in the position from the 1st of July 2020. And just to reiterate what I did indicate in the annual report, to thank Mr. Morris for his term with the department and for his leadership and expertise and guidance that he provided to the team. If I can then move on, in terms of page 8 and the Western Cape Community Safety Act, I will ask Director Amanda Dissel to come in here, but just to say that we have drafted amendments to the Act. The amendments do include the oversight over law enforcement, as mentioned by Honourable Member Christians, and that is part of the revision, together with, for example, the Ombudsman being able to, or empowered to initiate investigations, just to name some of them. However, in terms of our oversight over the law enforcement and in particular the LEAP project at this time, we have a transfer payment agreement and a business plan in place with the City of Cape Town. So we do monitor the LEAP deployment in accordance with that transfer payment and business plan, and the city has to report to us in that regard as well. In terms of Hanover Park and the LEAP officers, I'm going to ask Trevor Wingrove to come in there. I do know at some time when we had an increase in violence in Hanover Park, we were able to request the city to deploy a further 80 LEAP officers to that end. However, under normal circumstances, Honourable Member Kama, we request a deployment of 100 LEAP officers per priority area. And if I can just reiterate, then it's Khayelitsha, it's Nyanga, it's Delft, it's Hanover Park, and Bishop Lavis, which are the 5 priority areas that for which we fund the City of Cape Town and the LEAP project. In terms of gender-based violence initiatives, I'm going to ask Director Louis Brown to give some input there. Just want to mention that the Department of Community Safety has been working closely with the SAPs in this regard. We have also been monitoring cases through our court watching briefs project. We would also like to assist the SAPs as far as possible with the training of their frontline personnel at the service centers, as well as look at how we can partner perhaps with private or the corporate sector to upgrade the victim-friendly facilities and ensure that there are more volunteers that are in place at these facilities. Also, in terms of, we continue to monitor the SAP's compliance with the Domestic Violence Act. So that is something that we do on an ongoing basis as part of our oversight mandate as well. Then going forward, in terms of violence prevention initiatives, in terms of the focus safety area, there is an integrated law enforcement and violence prevention approach in areas and we have established, or we're in the process of establishing by the 18th of December, area-based teams in the 5 areas that I've already mentioned. And from or on the basis of the establishment of the area-based teams, we will then have evidence-based and data-led violence prevention as well as law enforcement interventions. Chairperson, if you'll allow me to pause there, and as I indicated, Mr. Watkins to come in on the accreditation of neighborhood watchers, Ms. Dissel to come in on the Western Cape Safety Act, Mr. Wingrove to come in on the LEAP officer deployment if he wants to add anything to what I've said, and then Mr. Brown to come in on the gender-based violence initiatives. Thank you, Chair.
No problem at all.
Thank you very much, HOD. Honourable Chair, Honourable Christians, in response to your question, good afternoon. Just on your first question, the reaccreditation is a biannual process. In other words, every 2 years, the neighbourhood watchers have to apply for reaccreditation. We're currently standing on 338, which is a little bit of a drop. The problems that we are experiencing are that we find that there's challenges in terms of the neighbourhood watchers submitting the correct documentation, etc., for reaccreditation. However, we continue to support them so that we can get their reaccreditation completed, and then also while supporting the new applications. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Chair, if I may, Trevor Wingrove here.
By all means, yes.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair, honourable members. Chair, just in terms of the LEAP deployments, the department funded the recruitment and training of 500 LEAP officers. The HOD did mention, because we're working in 5 areas, the perfect scenario is that we have 100 LEAP officers in each area. However, we must also keep in mind of the 500 LEAP officers, 455 were fully certified due to the fire license issue where they must have a fire license, they must pass the firearm training, my apologies, before they can be deployed. So in the previous financial year, so 455 LEAP officers were deployed, and normally they would work in 2 teams because they're also working shifts. And in a Nova Park, yes, we obviously, it is a priority area. So as the HOD mentioned, when we were at the height of the gang violence in the Nova Park, we did request the city to send in additional LEAP officers to Nova Park, and that was a very successful. The gang violence was quelled very quickly, and the results were seen in a very short time. So 80 additional officers were then deployed. In terms of reporting, we receive weekly reports from the city, and in terms of the report, if I can say, on average, we will have about 60 to 70 LEAP officers on a daily basis in a Nova Park active. And as I've also mentioned, they will operate in 2 teams. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. It's Amanda Dissel. If I may add, according to the question directed at me. Good afternoon, members. The question was around the progress of the Western Cape Community Safety Act revisions. In the year that was actually under review, we identified the required changes in the Act. We had a number of internal consultations amongst the Department of Community Safety to identify what those changes would be. And then during this financial year, we submitted them to Legal Services for a significance test. They considered all our recommendations for amendments and have now recommended that we submit it for a regulatory impact assessment. One of the main reasons for submitting it for the regulatory impact assessment is precisely because we have recommended extending our oversight to all law enforcement and traffic, well, particularly law enforcement authorities. We currently only have oversight over municipal police, which is the city's metro police, but we don't have any oversight over law enforcement, other than by means of the contract with the City of Cape Town for the LEAP officials, which is a small subset of the city's law enforcement officials. So unfortunately, that process has taken a bit of has been a bit delayed by the COVID and the need for legal services to concentrate on other issues. So we are going to pick that up in the new year. We will be having a meeting this week with legal services to discuss how to take forward the regulatory impact assessment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much to the HOD and the various departmental officials. Members, is there any follow-up questions? I have tabled part A. I see Member Kama. I will now note you. Just give me just give it 20 seconds. Is there any other member? We have tabled pages 3 to 16. Member Kama, I now note you.
Thank you very much, Chair. My follow-up is on the LEAP officers. I think the HOD mentioned the number of. She mentioned something to the effect of 5 areas that they were working on. Can we get an understanding, Chair, of these 5 areas? Because I want to ascertain if does this include all the 10 MEDA precincts, because I think when even this was announced, it was that the deployment would be made to the 10 MEDA precincts in line with the vision of the plan, which is to halve MEDA rate in the province in the next 10 years. Now, I want to check that, Chair. And I also want to check what has been the involvement of SAPS in the deployment of the 455 LEAP officers, because I did not hear coming, but there is mentioned that there was a request for deployment in the Hanover Park area. I am asking this because I want to also get an understanding, because when we inquire even to SAPS and other law enforcement authorities about the violence, the gang-related violence that is happening even in Hout Bay, in Elsis River, and all other parts of the Cape Flats, there's been an issue of a lack of resources. So I want to check if any deployment has been made to these areas, and a detail of that deployment, and as to how did this deployment happen, because I understand that there's a requirement that all these must be done and under the command of the South African Police Service. So those are my follow-ups, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you so much, members. Just before we move on, is there any other member on part A? I will now note the department.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I will answer and ask Mr. Wingrove to come in here as well. So the 5 areas that were initially identified are based on the murder stations and the murder stats. So the initial 5 areas is Khayelitsha, Nyanga, Delft, Hanover Park, and Bishop Lavis. And we are currently engaging with the city for the further rollout of the additional 500 LEAP officers, and the areas that are under consideration are Mfuleni, Gugulethu, Harare, Kraaifontein, and Mitchell's Plain. So all these stations do feature, Honourable Chairperson and members, in the list of top murder stations in the Western Cape. Just to answer in terms of the South African Police Service, they are very much a part of this partnership. We do have a governance arrangements framework that is in place, and the SAPs from the Provincial Commissioner General Matakata, as well as to the station commanders, are involved in every level of this governance arrangement framework. There are meetings that take place on the level of General Matakata, the executive director of the city, Richard Bosman, and myself, and there are meetings and engagements that are taking place on a level between the directors in the city, as well as the directors in the department as well as senior officials from the Provincial Commissioner's Office on that level. And then we have an operational steercom where decisions are taken and discussions are happening in relation to deployment together with the SAPs in the areas that I have identified and mentioned now. Honourable Chair, if you will allow me to ask Mr. Wingrove if he would like to add anything at this time, please.
Yeah, thank you, HOD. Yes, thank you for that question, Honourable Member Kama. I think the only thing I can add is to say that any operation, any deployment takes place under the command and control of SAPS. Any operation that the LEAP office employ, it takes place under the command and control of SAPS. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, I trust that we are able to move forward and commence with part B. If there's no objections to that, part B would be from pages 17 to 78. Let me table the entire part, but I will afford a number of rounds depending on the interest with regard to questions. So as a start, I will table page 17 to page 78, the entire part B. I note Member Christians and Member Kama in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just on page 18, Member Kama touched on it, but I saw it in part B. We always talk about halving the murder rate in 10 years, but if I think it's the second paragraph, high levels of violent crime in the West Cape have resulted in a lack of safety experience on number communities. So if you look at that, it says, the province has the third highest murder cases, accounting to 18.6 murders nationally, and it talks about third highest attempted murder cases. Now, Chair, what I just want to pose this question there. If you look at, now I know it is the annual crime statistics published by SAPS, but if the department can tell me, and I will also latch that to Delft, that now it's received the highest numbers of murders on page 19, but I don't think that's a true reflection, because further on you say, however, Sir Mora Masal is also now that precinct was open, so it means that some of the cases of Nyanga was reported there, so that if you combine the two of that, then that is still the highest, Nyanga. But my point, Chair, is if you look at the population per province, the Western Cape is now heading for 7 million, KZN's got 11.5, and Gauteng is the biggest province with 15.5 million. Now, for us to be the highest and the third highest, is that per 100,000 or is that per population per province? Because then that is, it seems to me we can't make the inroads because we have the lead officers, and Advocate Belay said it's Kailitsa, Nyanga, Delft, and Overbach and Bishop Lavis. And then she mentioned the others to be considered. Is the problems that we have only in the metro, because there are no non-metro areas, and I know Worcester and Paarl is also, I don't have the stats in front of me. If I'm going to stop there, Chair, there's more questions. I don't want to engage that first before I get to the others. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Christians. We will be affording various input and clarity. So thank you for that input as a first instance on Part B. I now note Member Kama and then Member Bosman.
Thanks, Chair. Let me also say that I face somehow the same frustrations that Member Christians has around our response to the levels of crime in the province. I want to check, Chair, on page 18, third sentence. I think it says the province had the third highest reported murder cases, accounting for 18.6% of murders nationally, and one really wonders, Chair, as to when are we going to start seeing an impact of the safety plan, and the department as a has taken over now fully in terms of I think with the Department of Health, if I heard correctly, in terms of ensuring the implementation of this and want to really ask, because I saw in other parts of the report the department referencing to the causative factors of crime, and want to say, how is the department really thinking about the impact of spatial integration, improving lighting and accessibility in the Cape Flats and in informal settlements to improve the situation. So the question is about what is the department doing to push other departments who are responsible for this to happen. The next question on page 19, Chair. Last paragraph, it says for the financial year 2019-20, Delft Police Precinct recorded the highest number of murders in the province and the country, thereby replacing Nyanga. I want to check what has helped to improve the situation in Nyanga and what has gone wrong in Delft, and perhaps what measures is the department putting in place in Delft and Kailicha to improve the situation as we have done in Nyanga. The other question on page 30, quickly, Chair, paragraph 1, in line with its mandate in terms of program 2 of civilian oversight. I think the department says it has successfully exercised oversight over provincial law enforcement agencies for the 5-year strategic plan of 2015 to 2020. What does this oversight entail, Chair? What steps were taken to investigate murders, even the murder of an undercover cop in the CBD? What was done to hold different law enforcement authorities accountable? The other question that I have, Chair, which I will pause with for now, is on page 42. Last paragraph, where it says the sub-program is responsible for the implementation of the court watching brief program in line with the cabinet resolutions as stated there. I want to check, Chair, whether the court watching brief monitored the case of the provincial treasury employee who is accused of a sexual assault. If so, how many cases were attended and what is the progress update regarding the case? I'm asking this, Chair, because I think in one instance I visited I went to one of these appearances, and there deliberately I had an exercise, because it was during the COVID period, of asking the people that are there in the court and getting to understand where they are from, and there was no one from the court watching brief, or or there's no requirement or need for the person to be there physically, or what, or how are they conducted these how do they conduct this exercise of monitoring these cases? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Kama. Member Bosman.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, my question pertains to page 48, which deals with subprogram 2.4, safety promotion. It's noted there under the performance measure 2.4.3 that the department hosted a walk on the Sea Point Promenade youth initiative together with the Department of Health and Chrysalis Academy to promote activities of a recreational nature as an alternative to drugs and crime. And they also hosted a youth camp with 93 young people aimed at fostering leadership and emphasizing the role of young people in safety promotion and violence prevention. Can the department perhaps tell us what the other event was about as well, especially the event that did not take place due to COVID-19, the one that was scheduled in March? And then also, can the department perhaps elaborate on how it evaluates the efficacy of these events and the impact it has on keeping young people away from drugs and gangs and promoting positive alternatives? And what kind of follow-ups are in place to monitor the trajectory of these participants once they've attended these programs? Is there a continuous evaluation of their progress through their lifespan? And then my second question is on page 55, which deals with safety partnerships. That's sub-program 3.1.1. where the department notes that it's formed safety partnership to support strategic safety partnerships, and that's one is with the Chrysalis Academy and the YWP and the YSRP programs. And it says there that there's 601 young people that successfully graduated from the academy, while a total of 1,388 young people were placed in work opportunities across the 3 safety partnership programs. That's on page 51. Can the department provide perhaps a brief breakdown on those work placements for those 1,388 graduates? across the 3 safety partnerships. So where have they been placed? And also maybe indicate how many of the 601 chrysalis graduates have been placed with partners. And then also again, Chair, after these young people have exited the 12-month program, what kind of monitoring is in place to ensure that they continue to benefit from the positive impact that this program have? Is there a tool in place to track them? And if so, is it a tool that's used transversely across the Western Cape government, specifically a tool that's used with municipalities as well as the Department of Community Safety? I'll stop there for now, Chair, since I've said quite a mouthful already.
Thank you so much, Member Bosman. Member Botha. Mr. Matthews, we may have lost.
Not to worry, I'm passing.
No problem at all. Just on the one to latch on to Member Kama, in terms of the court watching brief, I think the department should be commended in terms of the program, but also in terms of it being adopted by national. But what I want to ask, in terms of the reports that were submitted, the department completed at a target of 4, and 4 actual reports were then submitted. But also, if we're able to hear more about the reports and on the meetings where SAP's inefficiencies were identified through the court watching briefs, if the department can speak to that, please. Over to the department.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to hand over very briefly to our Director, Strategic Services and Communication, Ms. Ansaf Mohammed. There are 2 corrections that we would like to note and inform the committee of within these pages. If you could allow me to please just hand over to her briefly so we can highlight those corrections, please, and then I will answer the questions.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, there are 2 erratas that we picked up just before our presentation to the Standing Committee today. It was not picked up by ourselves or our auditors. The first errata is on page 19, which is figure 1. It reads top 10 murder stations in the Western Cape for 2019-20. And in the actual figure, it says top 10 murder stations 2018 to 2019. This is definitely a DTP errata, as the submission to the auditors indicated 1920. That is the first errata, Chairperson. The second errata on page 21, this is paragraph 2, line 9. It indicates that the department to fund the recruitment and training of 5,000 additional learner law enforcement officers over a 5-year term. This number is 3,000 and not 5,000, Chairperson. This we've picked up too just before our Standing Committee submission in our preparations. And so I'm requesting through you, HOD and Chairperson, that we verbally table this and then submit the erratas to you post the session today, or we can do this during the session today, depending on what the processes would be, given that we are raising the erratas in the session now. Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's okay. That has been noted. I will hand back to the department.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, and we sincerely apologize for not picking this up sooner. I'm going to attempt to answer some of the questions, and I would like the directors to add as well. So in terms of Honourable Member Christian's input, the stations that I mentioned in terms of Khayelitsha, Nyanga, Delft, Hanover Park and Bishop Levers, this was in relation to the LEAP deployment. So this is our agreement with the City of Cape Town. So that's why I only spoke about the 5 areas within the city and in the further rollout of an additional 5 areas within the city. However, the murder stations in this province are also within the Cape Metropole. But that does not mean that we have forgotten the needs of the other municipalities, and especially our rural areas, and as was mentioned, Worcester, for example. So we will be setting up our area-based teams in the 11 areas within the Cape Town Metropole. So it's the 10 areas that I've mentioned, but we also realize that the southern and western area is not covered with the by these 10 areas. So we will establish an area-based team there as well. We will then roll out the establishment of area-based teams in all the district municipalities. We have had extensive engagements with both the district and local municipalities to identify the area in which these area-based teams would need to be established within their municipal space. So we are considering the crime stats, we are considering various factors, but together and in consultation with the municipalities. Now, as I indicated, these area-based teams will have an integrated law enforcement and violence prevention approach, because as we know, the just having a law enforcement response is not going to deal or address some of the real issues that have been highlighted. For example, lighting and crime prevention through urban design, spatial planning, etc. So those are issues that we have to address if we want to reduce the murder rate and crime in general in this province. So there is much focus going forward on the violence prevention as well. And we are adopting a life course approach. So we are going to have interventions across all departments that have to be tied into one another, all the way from when a mother is still pregnant with a child, all the way to that person becoming an elderly person, for us to have interventions throughout the trajectory of an individual's life. Just to say, in terms of the other departments, we've had meetings with the heads of departments of, for example, human settlements, transport and public works, as well as the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. That in relation to the spatial planning, the urban design issues. We've also had meetings with the head of Department for Social Development, for Cultural Affairs and Sport, and in terms of health, of course, in terms of then considering the other interventions that are critical in terms of youth development, dealing with the elderly, access to services, etc., because all that is critical towards us making the province safer and reducing the murder rate. It is not going to be having immediate results. It will take some time before we can see the results of our violence prevention interventions, but we are going to be having this at a very localized space, and not just have it, say, from having it at our office and hoping that something would happen. We want to involve the community-based structures, the neighborhood watches, the community policing forums at a local level that will inform the interventions that will be taking place and that we'll put in place going forward. So just to address that matter, in terms of the statistics, I'm going to hand over to Amanda, Ms. Dissel, to speak to that. And in terms of the court watching briefs, Louis Brown, Mr. Brown, to speak to that. I'd just like to add, in terms of our oversight, so our oversight does take a few forms. We have oversight over the police as well as the municipal police service. They have to report in terms of Section 19 and Section 21 of our Act. We monitor IPID recommendations. We monitor the SAP's compliance to the Domestic Violence Act. We were involved in the National Census Project, where we visited and inspected all police stations in the province. We've also have reported on the state of detective services in the province. So in terms of all of that, together with the court watching briefs that we have put in place, I will have Mr. Brown speaks to the specific issues that Honourable Member Karma has raised in that regard. In terms of the safety promotion and partnerships, I will ask Director Trevor Wingrove to speak to that. as well as to the breakdown of the work placements. I would just like to add that all chrysalis graduates are placed in a work opportunity for a minimum period of 12 months to a period of 24 months. The Chrysalis Academy monitors the graduates for a period of 5 years, so there is monitoring thereafter. And then just to say, in terms of the court watching briefs, the reports are submitted to the SAPs as well. And I'm pleased to report that the Provincial Commissioner has provided feedback on action that has been taken in terms of our reports, where we actually highlight the matters that were struck off the roll and the reasons for those matters being struck off the roll, which could range from a witness not brought to court, or the investigation being incomplete, etc. But Louis Brown can speak further to that. But SAPS does respond to us, and also have taken action against members who have not been compliant. Honourable Chair, I'm going to pause there, and if I could please ask then firstly to have Ms. Dissel come in about the crime stats, Mr. Brown to come in on the court watching briefs, and Director Trevor Wingrove to come in on the safety, promotion and partnership matters. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
That's all good, HOD. Those officials are able to do it in that order as well. Thank you.
Chairperson, I will answer the question about the crime statistics. The question was why Nyanga is no longer the top murder station. As it indicated in the report, Nyanga was divided into 2 police stations with the establishment of Samora Machel in 2018-19. And in 2018-19, Samora Machel recorded 30 murders. This increased to over 70 in 2019-20, while it became firmly established. So Nyanga and Samora Machel together account for 291 murders, which is more than the number that was recorded in Delft of 265. So if the 2 stations are added together, Nyanga is still the top murder station, well, the top murder area in the province, unfortunately. The other one that we need to worry about is Delft and also Khayelitsha. We've been monitoring these stations throughout the lockdown period, and we see that Khayelitsha is recording the highest number of murders. I also just wanted to make mention of the concern that murders have not been decreasing. If you see the number of murders in 2018-19 was 3,974, and in 2019 and 20 it was 3,975. So in that financial year, murders increased just by 1, which is a very small increase, and one could almost talk about a stabilization in murder. However, we do note that there's been an increase in the number of murders right for the last 10 years. However, we've noticed in the first 2 quarters of this year that there have been a decrease in murder, probably most likely due to the COVID lockdown. There was a decrease in murder by 27.4% in Q1 and by 0.9% in Q2. So this will impact when we see the final year's murder statistics for 2020 and 2021. Yes, thank you. I think I've answered the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'm Louis Brown, and I want to see if I can. I want to respond to the questions of Honourable Christians and then the questions of Honourable Karma. In terms of the Western Cape Safety Plan, with the establishment of area-based teams, and I'm just going to refer to the example you used, Honourable Chair, Honourable Member Christians. In terms of Delft, so once we established the area-based teams in Delft, we already had discussions with the station commanders as well as the City of Cape Town, the LEAP coordinator in that area. So once you look at Delft as a precinct, we will find Sectors 2 and 5, for example, will be our problematic sectors within those areas, within that precinct. We find that one is more alcohol related and the other sector is much more gang related. So we will have specific interventions for those areas, for those sectors, in terms of reducing then the murders within the Delft precinct, as well as and how do we supplement that with interventions in terms of the public health perspective. But surely we are still at the initial stage, but there's a willingness from the SAPS and from the city to contribute towards the Western Cape Safety Plan. That is on the issue of the Delft. Honorable Kama, the question of what oversight, what it entails from the department side. Yes, we did a census in 2017, 2018. We looked at then all police stations in the province. Then it was still 150 police stations. And we looked at systemic issues that we've identified. And one of the issues we've identified, for example, the lack of training of detectives. So then we made a recommendation to national, and now we're looking at what more can we do in terms of how do we assist the SAPS detectives in terms of enhancing their training and what should be in that training model. So we, while doing oversight, we also come up with recommendations in terms of improving the professional level of professionalism, as well as what is expected from the detectives. That will also then lead into the second part of Honorable Kama's question in terms of how do we do our oversight. So once a case gets registered, we then follow up and it goes to court. We then look at what is the systemic issues that causing some of the cases not to either to be finalized at court. And then those recommendations then, when we go to court, we look at the court register and we find in a number of inefficiencies, either DNA reports outstanding, witnesses not appearing. And then those where cases have been struck off the roll, we will then just alert the PC through our report to say these are the systemic issues we've identified, and then why is it that it's off the record, off the court roll, and then sometimes, most of the time, the PC will, all the time, the PC will then respond and then give feedback in terms of each and every case that we've highlighted to the PC. In terms of the case of the Treasury employee, I don't have the final detail, but surely I will be able to respond to the standing committee on that issue. I think I've covered the questions as they were posed. Yes, thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honourable Bosman. Thank you for those questions. So, in the main purpose of the Indicator 243 is that we do activities with the chrysalis graduates. That's both active graduates as well as ex-graduates, and basically the whole purpose is just to instill a sense of community. If we look at the beach hawk, for example, what we don't realize is many of our young people never come out of the places where they stay. Things that we take for granted, to go for a walk on the beach, it is not always possible, for many of our youth just to embark on those types of activities. So we make it possible for them via the Chrysalis Academy. And the Chrysalis Academy has, in the communities, they have what we call safety ambassadors. So they would mobilize the youth, they will identify them, and there's an ongoing engagement between that safety ambassador and the youth. And many of them, through these activities, many of them are enrolled into the Chrysalis Academy. And then they also, undergo the training, and they also lead to a work opportunity. So the one that we didn't do was where we envisaged to do a community cleanup. And unfortunately, then the national disaster was declared, and we unfortunately were forced to cancel that activity. So that would have taken place in mid-March of this year. Then in terms of the work opportunities, yeah, we have created 1,388, where our target was 1,100. And as the HOD has already indicated, we achieved 100% placement of chrysalis graduates. So all 601 were placed in a work opportunity. In terms of where they are placed, there are various placement institutions. If I can just mention a few, we place them at municipalities, we place them at SITs, we place them at hospitals, clinics, we place them with the NPA at courts. We also place them with various NGOs, for example, the Amandla Edu Football. There's an organization in the Southern Cape, 7 Passes, which is in a very rural area. Where we also place students with them on the EPWP. There's an organization called Jazz Art, where we also support them with EPWP graduates. Then, of course, on the Youth Safety and Religious Program, we give every partner that we have, every faith-based organization, we give an opportunity to use 2 of their youth on their programs, and the department will also put them on the EPWP and pay them a stipend to perform these duties. So those are the various work opportunities that we create on our EPWP. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the department. Members, we have tabled the entire part. Is there any questions on clarity, additional follow-up questions on the entire part B? I see member Christians. We will go with you first. I see you, member Christians. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just if I just want to hear from the department. It says, if you look at the Auditor General's report, predetermined objectives, and that's on page 17. The last sentence talks about the audit conclusion on the performance against predetermined objectives is included in the report with material findings being reported under predetermined objectives. If the department can just elaborate on that, and then if you go to page 45, and the department says here, page 45, 2.5.3, the target deviation from planned target. It says not all CPFs are willing to participate in the EPPs, and it goes further on. Now, is that not, and I'm asking the HOD, is that the realistic target? Because you are working on the willingness of the CPFs and those type of. Just tell me quickly that target. Will you ever make that target if you had to? If not everybody wants to participate in the program, so it's almost like you setting a target, but you've got no control over that target. And if we go to page 53, that's that 908. Now I see there is also the what access is the Auditor General said there in that 3.111, but that is during the 2018-19 audit action noted. If they can just, department can just explain on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. My question will be on page 44, paragraph where it says the department consulted with the relevant role players, and at the end of August 2019 issued the directives and guidelines for CPFs. Now I want to check, Chair, which role players were consulted in this, because I remember at a time, for example, SAPS, there was a point where SAPS, even after the issuing of the directives, SAPS rejected some of the directives on constitutional basis. and even the CPFs themselves that were there, there were many that were saying they were not consulted, and the department in hindsight is it not a feeling, or there's no sense of taking responsibility for the delay in the elections of CPFs, such that at this point in time
Member Kama, I just lost you at the last end. Can I just check with the department if
we don't have any funded talks of sentence when it talks about it? Pardon?
Member Kama, I lost you for about 30 seconds. I just want to double check with the department if they were able to get the question.
Honorable Chair, no. I heard the part on the directives and the delay in the AGMs, but not beyond that. Thank you.
Member, thank you so much, HOD. Member Kama, would you be able to carry on from where the HOD picked up?
Oh, can you hear me now, Chair?
I can hear you clear now, yes.
Oh, okay. No, I was briefly, Chair, asking about who are these role players that were consulted before the directives were issued, as we are aware that at the time issued SAPS was part of the role players were not happy with the directives, and to some extent they and is the department taking any responsibility or part of in terms of the delay in the AGMs thereof? The other question that I have, Chair, is on the same page 44, the second last paragraph, on the fourth sentence, where it talks about the district municipalities that were requested to attach their business plans that were aligned to their district safety plans. Now, what I want to check there is if the committee can be furnished with the copies of the district safety plans that are submitted to the department, and perhaps get an understanding, Chair, on what were the reasons given by districts who have established the safety or the CSFs. The other question that I have.
Member Kama, we are losing you again. I'm unable to hear.
Is on page 5, paragraph.
Member Kama, you are breaking up again.
Hello?
You broke up for about a minute again, sir.
Is it?
HOD?
Apologies.
HOD?
Honorable Chairperson?
I trust that you caught the gist of it. Or should Member Kama repeat?
Chairperson, the last I got was the request for the district safety plans. And I did hear something about CSFs, but I did not hear the question. Apology.
Thank you so much. You heard the input and the remarks from the HOD, Member Kama.
Yes. So sorry. Let me apologize, Chair, for I'm sure it might be my network. I was asking in that question, Chair, if we can if there were any reasons that were given by the districts for not establishing the CSFs. And the other question that I have on page 52, where on paragraph 2, where the way it says the sub-program program continuing to support the city with operationalizing of school resource officers. If it can be clarified in terms of the model of these school resource officers, and in terms of where are they deployed. It's on page 52, second last paragraph, where it deals with the complaints management system. If the committee can be furnished with a detailed report on the type of the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Kama. Members, we have tabled the entire Part B. This is the annual report for the Department of Community Safety 2019-2020. Having regard the fact that we have engaged the department during the course of this year on some of these matters already, but we have tabled Part B. I will allow the department to provide answers and input, and thereafter we will then see if we move on or if there is any clear and further questions that you have. But over to the department.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I will request Chief Director Lindy Govender and the CFO to answer the questions on the Auditor General. In terms of Honorable Member Christian's question on the CPFs, I do believe we did quite well in terms of 142 CPFs signing agreements with us to perform on the expanded partnership program. However, that being said, the expanded partnership program, which is our EPP, is a tool in which the department measures functionality of CPFs. It is the department's tool, so it's not, I have to say, an objective tool in the sense that a CPF may choose not to partner with the department, but may be fully functional. I think that's important to say so. And yes, it is the CPFs that have a choice to actually perform and participate on the EPP, for which in the past they have, and in this previous financial year, have received financial support for that. However, going forward, we are reviewing our funding model to the CPFs. We would like to see interventions, as I mentioned, the integrated law enforcement and violence prevention interventions that are evidence-led, data-led and evidence-based, that are happening in an area-based space. And we like the CPFs, as well as the neighborhood watches and the religious fraternity and other role players, to be involved in those interventions, where we will then have the necessary impact in any community or vulnerable community where we establish the area-based team. So we are re-looking at our funding model in relation to how we support CPFs that would add value to both the CPFs as well as the communities that we and the CPFs jointly serve. In terms of the CPF elections, Honorable Member Kama, the question in that regard, Honorable Member Kama, I have to say that initially the SAPs had agreed to the directives, the draft directives. It was submitted to the SAPs, and I'm not sure if you recall, there was actually even a media statement where the Minister of Community Safety, our minister, together with the SAPs that was present when these directives were officially launched. We also did consult with the CPFs, but I will ask Mr. Don Sauls to speak more specifically about that. Honorable Member Kama, but in terms of what you were saying and the delay in relation to the AGMs, because we did not receive full consensus as parties, that being SAPS, the CPFs and the department, that did cause a delay in terms of the AGMs being finalized before the lockdown period was over. And I mean, the department has to acknowledge that. I think going forward, in terms of the fact that the CPFs do not currently fall under the department legislatively at this time, it is my view, and in terms of the review of our Western Cape Community Safety Act, is that we should not be issuing directives at this time until the CPFs actually fall under the department. And I think on hindsight, that is something that we will be improving on going forward, because relationships did suffer because of that. And I think we want to be working with the CPFs as equal partners going forward, and that is why the review of our funding model as well. I'm going to ask Mr. Salts to come in there. In terms of the district safety plans, yes, definitely, we will make it available to the committee, the safety plans for all the district municipalities. In terms of the establishment of the CSFs, I will also ask Mr. Salts to respond on that. And then in terms of the school resource officers, there are 52 school resource officers that are placed in high-risk schools. These schools were jointly identified by the SAPs, by the Department of Education, etc. And after identifying the schools with the various criminal justice role players as well, we then proceeded to support the city to place 52 school resource officers at these schools. We can provide you with a list of these schools as well. In terms of page 52 and the complaints management system, that is a complaints management system that is set up in the Office of the Western Cape Police Ombudsman, and I will ask, if you will allow me, our director, Mr. Louis Brown, to answer on that question. And I was just reading a message from Mr. Brown as well at this time, and he indicated, Honorable Member Kama, that the investigation or the case of the matter that you mentioned is still ongoing and is active on the court watching brief database. But when he responds on the complaints management system, he can also cover that in more detail. Honorable Chair, if I can please then hand over either to Ms. Govender or the CFO to deal with the AG questions, and then over to Mr. Don Salts to speak on the any input he'd like to give on the AGMs as well as the CSFs, and then Mr. Trevor Wingrove to maybe he wants to add on the school resource officers, and then Mr. Louis Brown on the complaints management system if he would like to add anything. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
That's all in order, and we will take it in that order as well. Thank you.
Chairperson, good afternoon again. Lindy Govender. I will ask the CFO to just briefly respond on the question regarding the Auditor General's report and specifically the performance information. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Govender, and thank you, HOD, through yourself, Chairperson. The paragraph on page 17 just is a note from the auditors that indicates that if there are material findings, they will report it under the heading of predetermined objectives within the final audit report. So it's merely just indicating that if there are findings, that is where it would be reported in terms of the final audit report as submitted to the department. Now, just in that regard, Chairperson, during the audit period for this financial year, there was a finding which was deemed not material, and it was just a wording difference between an indicator of the APP and how it was reflected in the draft annual report. and if I can just indicate to you what it actually said, is that the indicator read in the APP the number of reports to determine the policing needs and priorities of the province, and then the same indicator in the draft annual report just left out the last 3 words of that sentence and just indicated the number of reports to determine the policing needs and priorities, and of the province was then taken or omitted. Now, that finding was declared immaterial, Chairperson. It was corrected in the final draft of the annual report that you see in front of you, and it was deemed then not worthy of being included in the final audit report as it was. So, in terms of the paragraph that's been read on page 17 then of this document, Chairperson, the finding there is actually nothing. I'm looking at the audit report as we speak, and the AG looked at program 2, civilian oversight, and the paragraph relating to PDOs, which is predetermined objectives, reads, I did not identify any material findings on the usefulness and reliability of the reported information for this program. So there was no material findings then on the final audit report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Advocate Pillay, is that covered from the department side?
No, apology, Honorable Chairperson. If Mr. Don Sauls can please come in on the anything he'd like to raise on the AGMs, and if he can also answer on the CSFs, please, and then over to Mr. Trevor Wingrove and Mr. Louis Brown. Mr. Sauls?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. I think in terms of the consultation sessions which was done with the community safety on the directives, I mean, just to note that the MEC was within his rights according to the Western Cape Community Safety Act to sort of provide further guidelines than the Constitution. So in terms of that, we consulted with the official body, which is the Western Cape Provincial Community Police Board, and we had at least 2 meetings with the executive of the board, and the assumption was that they will feed them information through. We even went slightly further and wrote emails to all CPFs requesting them for their input. We received that input, and then we considered that too. But I think as things developed, we realized that a more extensive consultation process would have sort of paid a bit more dividends, and it was a learning process too. But there were sort of consultation processes. Then in terms of the district safety forums, in the meantime, I mean, we have 2 district safety forums which are fully operated, which is the West Coast, and of which the West Coast is the latest one, which was sort of established. The other municipalities, district municipalities, they may not have exactly a fully functioning district safety forum, but they have a different form of governance. Like for an instance, in the Cape Winelands district, you know, the district municipality calls together all the municipalities from time to time, and they consult, and we pull in some of the different departments where sort of needed. But the committee must understand that for the municipal officials, this was a big jump to something different, and for that we now engage them. We just completed a 3-module course for municipal officials, which was presented by Salga. And there is a sort of bigger amount of acceptance of their role in the field of, of safety. So we are convinced that it will just go better going forward. But they all have, like, in different ways in which they respond to the safety needs based on their particular capacity and their particular need that they are. So none of the district municipalities, I mean, that I can say, none of the district municipalities rejects now the whole notion of being involved in the safety sphere. So the basis has sort of been laid, and I think it will just go better going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Mr. Wingro.
Thank you, HOD. Chair, Member Kama, yes, in terms of the SRO, I can confirm what the HOD said. We support the funding of 52 school resource officers, and that is at 16 higher schools in the province. And yes, we will definitely submit a list of the names of the schools and in the different areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, HOD. Honourable Chairperson, in terms of the just feedback on the matter mentioned by Honourable Kama early on, in terms of that specific case, that case is still ongoing, and it's still on our database. And when we revert back to the court, we normally just check what is progress on a certain case and whether that case has been scrapped. And if scrapped, then we will then look at the details and the matter, why it's not on the court, or if there's no outcome of that case. So it's still ongoing and still live on our database. So for further follow-up from our side on that specific matter you referred to, Honourable Member. On the issue of the complaints management system, we used to have a duplication of services where we did some of the complaints within the department, and then also the police ombudsman's office also did some complaints. We then agreed, and it was developed by Department of the Premier, a centralized application for the use of the Western Cape Police Ombudsman. So we have a system on their side where they register all complaints. Then what we from the department will normally do is to look at the section 18 and 19 complaints management, and then when the department's unit also go out to police station, we also look at service delivery complaints, and then we compare, and then with the one of the ombudsman's office, the complaints management system, and then we also try to determine then your systemic issues like lack of feedback, why people are complaining, poor investigations, and that get contained in our report when we then have engagements with either with the SAPs or through our oversight reports when we conduct that with station managers, as well as entail in our reports to the Provincial Commissioner. So yes, it's an integrated system for the complaints management system, also referring some cases that is not police related, and that they refer to other entities from the Police Ombudsman's Office. Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you so much to the HOD and all the officials for answering those questions. Members, we have tabled part B. Is there any last burning question, or are we able to move forward? I take that silence as that we are able to move forward. Members, it is now, we could potentially continue. Let me table the entire part C as well as the entire part D. Remember, part C is dealt with in Scoper, but if there is something that is burning or that you want clarity on, you are allowed to ask that one now, but the entire part E will strictly be dealt with in Scoper. I will take a round of questions now. I see Member Christians. You may go ahead, sir. And Member Botha.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just I'm not gonna go into part C. I'm in part D. Page 93. The employee 2.3 is the employee wellness. Is this bearing fruit? Is this bearing fruit? Because and maybe the HOD can explain this, because if I look at the wellness program, it must attach itself to, you know, your sick leave. Is there improvement in the sick leave and I'm looking at the page of sick leave, and page 119, most probably highly skilled production is 1123 total days taken, and that gives the employees, if they can just give us explanation on that. Is that bearing fruit? And then page 104, I'm looking at promotions to another salary level, and then I'm looking, so it seems to me people have not been promoted in the department. If you look at 3.47, promotions to another salary level, so there's no promotions, but progressions, there's a lot to the notch. I know how the notches work. So because I see there is an employee and resignations is very low in this department, but I see there is an employee that said, I'm leaving because there's no, I'm just looking where it is, I can't find it, but there's no progression. And that's one of the reasons he or she left the department. If the department can just enlighten us about that, because I see on page 107 that there was recruitment. So there was people brought into the department. And if the department can tell me, you know, these people in the department, so I know, is it that the department first advertise internally? If they don't get a person, then they go external. Do they give the people working in the department a first opportunity, and then they go to the recruitment of employees outside the staff establishment? And just maybe my final question on this, Chairperson, is I'm just checking on page 126, grievances lodged 1st April 2019 to March 2020. So the number of grievances resolved is 14, number of grievances not resolved is 3. So it says here grievances lodged refers to cases that were finalized in the reporting period. Grievance not resolved refers to cases where the outcome was not in favor of the grief. If they can just give us a number of grievances not resolved, some clarification on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Christians. I now note Member Botha and then Member Kama.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. I'm also on 126, and I'm latching onto the part of Member Christians now, 3.12.4, types of grievances that has been handled by the department, if they could speak to that. Then 3.12.3, if they could give context to the false statement evidence in execution of duty. And then 3.12.2, if the department could speak to the merit and the content of that suspension without a salary. And then on 130, sorry, the injury on duty 3.14.1. If the HOD could speak to the merits of the injury that was incurred. Thank you.
Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me clearly now.
We can hear you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of my questions have been asked by Member Porter and Member Christians, but I want to just on the question that Member Christians asked, Chair, on page 103, table 3.4.4. I also really want to get an understanding. I can see there are few resignations, but also I also want to get an understanding of how do the department react to these resignations and link that to the employee wellness program that we were talking about. Because if you look also, you'd have like two resignations which relate on interpersonal relationships at work, and even in the cases where no reason is provided. So if you can get a sense of it, especially when it comes to the interpersonal relations at work and the one on progression within the department. That's the question that I have, Chair. Also linked to another question is on the issue of I think page 120 on the issue of incapacity leave. Whether is the reported number of incapacity leave days inclusive of normal leave days, and also is the department not concerned about the number of days taken off by just 7 employees? What are the positions of these employees and their ages thereof? How did it happen, Chair? I'm worried. I see that there's also an individual employee that took 117 days off. How did this affect the department, and who did his or her job during these so many leave days? Thanks, Chair.
I'll now hand over directly to the department.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm going to be handing over to our Chief Director Management Support to respond to the issues. But just if I could just make a general comment, we are striving to create an atmosphere and an environment going forward where all our personnel thrive and where they all find a place of belonging within the Department of Community Safety, and we're trying very hard to achieve that. Lindy, if I can please hand over to you.
Thank you, Advocate Pillay, and also through you, Chair. I will do my best to respond to the questions, just noting that they are on various different pages, so I'll try and go through them as I've made some of my notes. Just in terms of the wellness programs, of course, the wellness programs really follows, as we've mentioned, a holistic approach in terms of the well-being of our staff. And we have services both of a primary and secondary nature. So yes, indeed, we would want to see that there is definitely a linkage in terms of the number of sick days. But in saying that, you know, despite your best wellness programs, you cannot, of course, prevent people from falling ill. So it might be that you don't actually see it translate into less sick days, but definitely looking at the overall well-being of our officials and providing them with that support in terms of their personal lives, but also within the work environment, I think remains very critical. and providing the support in terms of trying to attempt to reduce the number of sick days is for sure a priority. If I can maybe just then overall or generally explain the issue or the question raised in terms of progression and in terms of comparing the progressions versus notch increases and the recruitment processes. So in terms of when we advertise or when there is vacancies, we do actually consider and encourage our internal staff to apply for positions. There are, of course, options like transfers into positions, but that would be at the same level. If it's a higher level, then the officials that's interested should apply, and we definitely consider them as part of the competitive recruitment process with any other applicants and offer them the opportunity, if they then qualify or meet the criteria, to be joining the department for interviews. And then, as I said, it remains a competitive process. So we do definitely try and accommodate and see how we can assist our internal staff to also improve and further their careers within the department. If I may then, and please forgive me, I'll just have to page to the actual specific page numbers. There was a question in terms of the grievances lodged, the numbers resolved and not. That was table, if I'm not mistaken, 3.12.4. If I can just go there, please, Chair. It's quite a number of tables. Okay. So as explained in the note, the grievances lodged refers to cases where that was finalized within the period. Those that we refer to as not resolved refers to cases where the outcome was not in favor of the aggrieved, and then cases that's referred to as resolved. All cases is then either referred to as resolved or not resolved, but they are all finalized. So all 17 have been finalized. In terms of the types of grievances, I can confirm that a majority of them is related to misutilization. There are also a number of, about 3 of them relates to victimization. There's also 1 or 2 of conduct of a supervisor or management. And then there was 1 on filling of a post. So that's the main categories of the grievances. Those that's listed as not resolved was basically victimization, 1 case on discrimination and 1 on the conduct of a supervisor or management. I hope I've addressed that question. In terms of the types of grievances, in terms of the actual cases on tables 3.12.3 and 3.12.2, in terms of the misconduct cases where there was suspensions without salary and final written warnings, obviously that really depends on each case and the merits of each case, where the presiding officer would have ruled in terms of that sanction. I can maybe just indicate that the types of misconduct, the one of the 3 are related to prejudices, administration of organization or department, where there was a 1-week suspension and a final written warning. The other one was the false statement or evidence in execution of duty, where there was a final written warning and 2 months of suspension without a salary. And then the third one was absent from work without a reason or permission, where there was a week's suspension and a final written warning. At this stage, Chairperson, I don't have the detail on the false statement, but if it's possible, then we can actually provide it after the session, if that's in order. If I may continue, on table 3.10.2, page 120, I'm just following the order of the questions as I've made notes on them. We definitely do acknowledge that there are a very small number of officials that is currently or in the period utilized incapacity leave. We are aware of their conditions and their health issues. I think we have 2 officials that suffered or suffers from terminal illness, so they obviously have much longer periods away from the office. I can report that the 1 official has recovered and has returned to work. The second official, unfortunately, he has been back at the office, but then unfortunately he fell ill again, and he had to go for further treatment and further operations. So his leave is being managed still, and he is on the recover. I hope I've addressed that one on incapacity. So these incapacity leaves applications are very tightly and strictly monitored, and ensuring that we do comply, and that we also engage with the officials, and you know, keep in touch with them in terms of their recovery and their health, the conditions, so that we also ensure that they can return to work and not for a prolonged period remain on leave. Chairperson, I hope I have responded. Sorry, I think there's one last one on the injury on duty that I have not responded to. If I can just go there, table 314. There were 3 injury on duty cases during the period. We had one official that had an injury. I can basically mention the area of the injury. It was in our security services. All 3 of them was security officials. One had an injury in terms of their stomach, the other one on their hand, the left middle finger, and then there was one official with a lower back injury. Chairperson, I think I've covered all of them. If not, please, if you can just remind me if there's any that I missed.
Thank you so much. I attempted to follow. I think that is covered. Members, is there any follow-up questions? Any point of clarity? We have tabled the
Chair,
entire.
yes.
I note I hear member Botha.
Thank you, Chair. I now heard the injuries. Now, the injuries caused by what?
Thank you so much, member Botha. Members, before the department provides an answer or input based on member Botha's additional follow-up, we have tabled the entire annual report now. Based on where we are, is there any further questions? If not, I will hand over to the department for the last question in this annual report. Thank you so much. Over to the department.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm going to ask, if possible, maybe Ms. Governor can guide me if it is program 4. I'm not sure if Mr. Watkins will be able to then, Director Watkins, provide some information in this regard. If not, we will definitely provide the information after the sitting. Ms. Governor?
Yes, it was all in our security provisioning program. Unfortunately, Chairperson, I don't have access to that detail at this point, but we can definitely obtain it and provide it to the committee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree, HOD. I can't remember what was the details. I would rather just err on the side of caution and provide it afterwards.
Thank you so much. Our procedural officer will also capture that last one. To the department and to the HOD, is there any closing remarks from your side?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members. I think we always appreciate the input by this Standing Committee, and we value your guidance. I would just like to, on behalf of the department, express our sincere thanks to yourself and the honorable members. Also to express sincere thanks to the management team that is present in the sitting today, all our SMS members. Honorable Chair, this will be our new way of working, where we are more inclusive, so they will be joining us for future sittings as well. And just to say that as a department, we commit ourselves to doing even better in the future. As indicated earlier, we will be focusing on being more service delivery orientated, and we will keep the Standing Committee informed. We'd also like to wish you, Honourable Chair, and the members well over the festive season, and to be safe and take care. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, HOD, and all the officials. Thank you for that well wishes. And we will then echo that same sentiments for you as well as your department.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And may you go well and keep safe. And as we look forward to seeing each other again in the new year. Thank you so much. You may now excuse yourself from the meeting as we have some committee business to do. But again, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members.
Members, again, thank you so much. We have some committee business to attend to. I know it is after 5 already. I wanted to check if let me just open the note. In terms of the information that we have requested, what Wasim has at this moment is the committee requested from the Western Cape Liquor Authority to provide the following information. Number one would be details on the policy decision that sets out the criteria for the types of partnerships that the Western Cape Liquor Authority forms with external stakeholders. Second is a list of outlets that were fined or had their licenses revoked during the 2019-2020 year. And then information should include the nature of the offences, the names of the outlets and the locations. The last one for the Liquor Authority is a number of enforcement interventions and operations conducted in Sea Point, Camps Bay, Clifton and the surrounding areas. From the department, we are wanting a breakdown of the 1388 work opportunities created through partnerships, a breakdown of the partnership with whom Chrysalis graduates were afforded work placements, an explanation on the department's tracking and monitoring mechanisms of Chrysalis graduates, also to indicate the methodology that guides this monitoring tool, and then copies of the district municipality safety plans, and the list of schools where school resource officers were placed. Another one in terms of the last input from Member Botha is the details on the nature and causes of the injury on duty cases. Members, did we miss anything? If not, I consider that to be finalized in terms of our resolutions. We have a number of minutes to get through, but I wanted to check from Wasim. Wasim, should we do it today or can it stand over? It would probably be best, members, if we do it actually today and get it over with. What, Wasim?
Chairperson, it's up to you. Get it out of the way. It's fine. We can leave it till when we adopt this annual report, the report on the annual report. But if you do it now, just give me a few seconds to actually just share the documents. But it's entirely up to the committee.
Members,
if members have
guidance.
Chair?
Yes, Member Botha.
May I make a proposal that it stands over for when we adopt this annual report?
By all means. By all means, Member Botha. Member Kama, you are not allowed to disagree with that, but I will listen to you, sir.
Definitely, Chair, that's what I wanted to indicate.
That you agree with Member Botha?
Definitely, Chair.
Thank you so much, members. When the year started, none of us realized that the year could end in this way, but I do want to say thank you. I've learned so much from Member Kama, from Member Botha, Bosman, Member Christians. Your valuable experience has been so helpful. And Member Brinkhuis, thank you for all that you do and everyone on this committee. It is highly appreciated. Even earlier on, just understanding that the minister is not here, and the members would understand that it is a serious matter, and they would understand that under the circumstances to still want to wish him well. So thank you for your heart, for your guidance, for your help, and for keeping this committee honest. So thank you so much, and I sincerely trust that you will be safe during the weekend and all your other plans will go well. But Member Botha, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to validate you as a chairperson for the standing committee, and thank you for the leadership with regards to the chairing of this committee.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I have a severe headache, but thank you so much. Members, we are not seeing each other again this year.
Well, chairperson, not officially, but nothing stops you from seeing each other.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to visit Member Christians. But thank you so much, each and every one. And may the year ahead be, the end of the year be amazing. And you are so valuable. Is there any member that want to say something? Member Christians, do you want to say well wishes to us? Having the leadership of the pastor here is so vital.
Yeah, no, Chair. I think I just want to share the same sentiments as Member Botha and yourself. I think you've done well as a chairperson. You've been very, very fair, and so that's always a good thing. And I think we make one team, but there's one chairperson, and when we abide and when we cooperate, we can be very productive by when the department is here. And the one thing that I also, and I want to commend all the members on this, it's always a good thing if we don't fight and scream in front of departments or external bodies. So that's a very, very plus factor. And I don't think there was an incident except with Minister Fritz when he banged the table. But I think it's so nice as a committee if we are united and we're there to do a job irrespective of our political affiliations. So Chair, yeah, well wishes to everybody, and I really pray and hope that people will adhere to the COVID regulations and be examples, and also have a good rest and come back fired up to next year. And if Lord spares us, that we have a fruitful year as we had here. And thank you very much for our very competent procedural officer, Wasim Matthews. Very competent, and I think we're a strong team, Chair, but under your leadership, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Wasim has really been amazing. Thank you to you, Wasim, also to Mr. Bendaza, Mr. Clarence Isso, for your help and assistance with IT-related matters. Please, this meeting is now officially adjourned. Member Botha, your hand is still up. So sorry. Oh, okay. Member Kama, please keep well.
Apologies.
Thank you.